So now today I'm going to be spraying the hood. We're going to be painting the hood the same color as the car, and we're going to start off first with the bottom. So for the bottom, all I did was quickly scuff it. We blew it off. Now we're going to clean it out with a wax and grease remover and start getting ready to go lay down our sealer first. So now comes time for one of the most crucial steps while painting a car, and that's going to be cleaning your surface prior to actually putting paint. So how we're going to be cleaning our surface, we're going to be using a surface prep, also known as a wax and grease remover. The purpose of this is so we can clean any particulates off our panel prior to actually spraying. If you have contaminants on your panel, when you do spray, you're going to have fish eyes or little bubbles that are going to come up underneath, and that's just letting you know that your surface is dirty and hasn't been prepped. Something that's very important here, use clean rags. Don't use rags that have been cleaned with possible laundry detergent, or don't reuse rags that may have been in contact with a greasy surface prior to. So here you see the method that we're really dousing this whole entire panel with our wax and grease remover, and then we're going over it with a rag. The purpose of this technique is so that way any contaminants that may be on the panel have a chance to lift off the panel, and then we're going over the surface with a rag to remove them from the panel. This is a much better practice than dousing your rag and then wiping over the entire panel. It's better to drench your panel, that way the particulate has a chance to lift off and you can clean it. Overall, you're going to have a cleaner surface. Now that our surface has been cleaned and finalized, it's time for us to go set up our gun, make sure all of our adjustments are in check prior to actually putting our sealer. For our sealer, base, and clear, we're going to be using the same gun. We have our FG5, the Vilbus, and we're going to just swap out the tip. So previously, when we were spraying primer, we had a 1.8 tip on it. So we're going to be swapping this out for the 1.3. How we're going to do it is we're going to first take off our cap, then we're going to be taking off the tip. Now from the back of the gun, I'm going to grab my fluid needle adjustment, and I'm going to back it out all the way. And I'll pull out my needle. So what happens when you're painting is this needle has a tapered end in it. And as you're painting, this needle slides in and out, which allows for the paint to scoot past. So the needle's all the way forward. And as you pull on the trigger, you actually pull it back, which creates the flow for the fluid to go through. Now our 1.8 is strictly just going to be for our primers, especially our high builds. And our 1.3 is going to be our general purpose for pretty much everything else. When you tighten it, you shouldn't be really cranking it down. I'm simply just getting it snug. Now that we did it, now we have to adjust our gun again. So we're going to pull our trigger all the way in. We're going to twist our fluid knob until I feel resistance. At that point, we're going to go about a quarter turn past, and now I know my gun's fully adjusted and ready to spray. Our gun is now adjusted and we are ready to spray. Prior to spraying any panel, always make sure to spray a test piece. As you can see on the left side of my table, I have plenty of sprays, and that's simply just making sure my pattern is set correctly. I'm at a decent pressure, and I like how the fluid is being atomized throughout the gun. Now we're going to start painting our panel. I was always taught when I first began to painting, you start from the center of the panel and work your way backwards. The issue with that is you leave one side is going to be known as your wet edge, while the other side is going to become your dry edge. Now the issue you're going to have is by the time you finish painting from the center to one side and you walk around your panel beginning painting from the center to the other side, that center section that you first started with is going to dry off. And that section that now you're painting on top of it is going to be wet. The wet and dry sometimes won't always mix, and that's how you're going to end up sometimes with a tiger stripe, and you won't have as uniform as if you start from one side to the other. So the wet edge, as you can see, I'm starting the opposite side of the camera and I'm working my way forward to the other side of the panel. That side that's slowly progressing its way to the opposite unpainted side of the panel is going to be known as our wet edge. We want to keep the entire panel as wet as possible throughout the time of our painting. We're going to move slowly and methodically throughout our panel, and we're going to be going for roughly about a 70% coverage here. Now this is sealer. We want to spray it a little bit heavier, and we want to move at a moderate speed, as we're only going to be doing one coat of this. The sealer is designed to get our panel one uniform color and to make coverage easier when we are spraying our base coat. Again, we are spraying a yellow. This is a very translucent color, and it's going to be very hard to cover all these different colors if we don't have a one uniform coat underneath it. Once we spray our sealer, we're going to give it approximately 10 minutes for all the solvents to be released from the panel and flash over completely before we start applying our base. During the time of spraying, there is no universal one-size-fits-all when it comes to spraying as far as pressure is concerned. In this particular case, I was using approximately 22 psi when spraying my sealer,
but this can all vary depending on your compressor setup, your tank size, and however your setup may be. It differs from guns to guns. A gun like a DV1 can spray very well at only approximately 12 psi. Now comes time for us to start putting our paint down. We have let our sealer sit for roughly 10 minutes. What that does is it lets the solvents, which is the chemicals within the product, actually come out the paint and evaporate off. That's what causes the whole flash over that we talk about. So 10 minutes later, we're ready to do our paint, and we start putting our coats of paint on. Now for this hood, we did 2 coats of paint. Between each coat, we wait 10 minutes. If not, we're going to have what's called solvent pop, which I'll be putting a picture on the screen right now. Solvent pop essentially is you put too many layers of paint, and what happens is there isn't enough time for that paint to fully flash and for those solvents to evaporate off the surface. So what happens is those solvents eventually need to find a way out. So once you start layering a lot of paint on top of it, it finds a way out by creating these little pops effects underneath the paint. When this happens, there's no saving your paint job. From here, you actually have to pretty much sand down your entire panel and paint it all again. It's very important to allow those solvents, give them time, 10-15 minutes. Always check your technical data sheet for whatever paint that you are using to see whatever they recommend. From here, I'm only showing 1 coat of paint, but we did the same process for the second coat. Start from one side of the panel to the other, push our wet edge across the entire panel. Again, since we are painting the other side of the hood and we do have the skeleton, it does create for an uneven terrain, so we do have to go back sometimes and hit certain spots that do look a little dry. Simply pay attention, look at the panel, see what the panel is telling you, and apply the paint accordingly. Now comes our favorite time, and this is going to be our time of the clear. Clear is where the color is really going to show through. You kind of get a nice color when you first lay your base coat down, but as it dries and flashes, it changes to a much uglier version of the color, and sometimes you can begin to panic. Don't worry, trust the process. Now comes time for our clear. Now the important thing with clear is we don't want to just absolutely drench it on our panel from the start. We want to apply a light coat in the beginning. The purpose of this is it's like a tack coat. Clear, if you ever felt it in your hands, is very sticky, and we want to take advantage of the properties of clear, and we want to take advantage of the stickiness of the clear. The first coat, we're just going for coverage. We're just trying to put clear on the panel. We aren't trying to make the panel look pretty yet. You're going to have some dry spots, and that's perfectly okay. Don't stress it. Simply follow the process. Trust the process. We're going to put our first coat of clear. We're going to go over the entire panel, and if there's some dry spots, that's okay. Our panel's really going to look good in our second coat of clear. Same concept with our solvents. We're going to give it approximately 10 to 15 minutes. I think I gave it 12 minutes for the panel to flash over. From here, we applied our second coat. Our second coat, 80 to 90% coverage. We're moving very slow. We're putting it very heavy. We're really making this clear really wet from when it comes out the gun. The wetter the clear is, the smoother it's going to layer out and the better it's going to look. Generally speaking, on most cars, 2 coats of clear is more than enough. If you feel the need to put an additional third coat of clear, just keep in mind our solvents take more time the more coats you put. So instead of it being a 10-minute flash time, I would wait 15 to 20 minutes before putting an additional third coat of clear. Doing this method where your first coat is really just to get some clear down and the second coat is where the shine's coming from, you're putting it on really thick, and even if you do have some imperfections as we are painting outside, you're going to have more than enough clear for you to be able to wet sand away. If you want the insurance of having a third coat, you're more than welcome to. Personally speaking, I don't find the need in most panels. A big thing when using clear is, clear itself needs an activator or a hardener. I'd highly recommend using a slow hardener and getting one that's the appropriate temperature for where you live. I live in sunny South Florida, and it is hot all year round. So with that being said, whatever activator I use in the summer is going to be the same activator I'll use in the winter, as it's pretty much almost the same temperatures. Now the advantage of the slow hardener is it allows the clear to dry slower, and it gives the clear more chance to level out and lay flatter. The downside to it, the clear stays wet longer. So in our case where we're painting outside, this can cause a longer chance and a greater window for dirt and debris to land in our paint jobs. It's okay, unfortunately it's part of not having a very fancy booth, but we make do with what we can. So congratulations, you made it out to the end of our first series, which was taking an old hood and saving it. Now this was a product that some people would discard and just get rid of, but with a little bit of love and a little bit of time, you can actually save these pieces. Fortunately, they don't make parts for most of these old cars anymore, so we have to save the little bit that we can save. Now the whole purpose of this video series was to prove that painting seems like a very daunting task, and everybody's always told that it's such a hard process. Now it is a process, and there is a lot of patience that takes with it, but as long as you have patience and you're willing to put the time, energy, and effort behind it, you can achieve some pretty decent results. As you can tell on screen, this hood came out pretty nice, especially for what it is. At the end of the day, this is just a drift car, and I understand that. But why not have a car that can also look half decent while you also drive decent? Now, I do want to apologize, as I did have a lot more footage recorded, especially the beginning process of this series, but unfortunately somehow I lost the footage. So we had to make do with what we can, as well we were already too far advanced for me to go back and re-record those steps. Painting, the results you get through painting really just determine on how much time you're willing to put into it. If you're willing to put an insane amount of time, you're willing to get an insane type of results. If you want to rush through something, well, the results will speak for themselves. I am by no means claiming myself a professional. I do not do this by any professional capacity. I'm simply a hobbyist who enjoys doing these in the comfort of my backyard. I like to have fun, I like to build cars, and hopefully record the process as well as teach others while I'm at it. So hopefully through this process you guys learn with just a couple bare necessity tools, a lot of patience, and a little bit of skill, and a whole lot of luck, you can actually be able to create a fairly decent result, even in the comfort of your own house. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any feedback, positive and or negative, please leave it down below. As YouTube's very new to me, still trying to get used to the whole camera thing and get comfortable with the whole process of it. But I have enjoyed the process so far, and I'm very excited to see that where we'll be in the future. So anyways, be safe, take care. See you in the next one.